So, what if I told you that the most popular ways of studying are, well, actually the least effective? Today, we're going to dive into the science of learning from the amazing book, Make It Stick. We're going to show you how a little bit of a struggle can actually make knowledge last a lifetime. So, let's get right into it. You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You spend hours and hours highlighting, rereading your notes, cramming for a big test, only to have that knowledge just vanish a week later. It is one of the most common, universal frustrations when it comes to learning. So, what is really going on here? Okay, this slide right here. This gets to the very heart of the problem. Our brains are kind of wired to think that if learning feels easy, then it must be working. I mean, look at that column on the left. Rereading, highlighting, cramming. It feels so productive, doesn't it? But all the research shows these things create an illusion of knowing. The real magic, the stuff that actually builds a lasting memory, is on the right. And now it's the harder stuff, like quizzing yourself and mixing up topics. And that brings us to the core idea of the whole book. See, real durable learning isn't some smooth paved road. It's more like a climb. It's supposed to be effortful. The authors call these desirable difficulties. Basically, when your brain has to work harder to pull information out, it forges much stronger, more lasting connections. It's like they say, easy in, easy out. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to expose this learning illusion. Then we'll get into some really practical toolkits for a bunch of different people: students, lifelong learners, teachers, and trainers. And we'll wrap things up by looking at what's physically happening inside your brain when you learn this way. Seriously, stick around because there's great advice in here for everyone. All right, let's tackle this learning illusion head on. Why do our brains trick us into thinking that the easiest study methods are actually the best? The science tells a really fascinating and totally different story. I mean, this quote really says it all, doesn't it? Learning that feels easy, like just rereading something over and over, it's exactly like writing in the sand. The information is there for a moment, but then the tide comes in and poof, it's gone. Truly effortful learning, where you have to struggle a little bit, that's like carving knowledge into stone. It stays. We see this happen all the time, especially in corporate training, with what they call the fire hose method. You just get blasted with information for hours on end, and almost none of it sticks. It's total information overload. You want to know the complete opposite of that? Think about a pilot in a flight simulator. They aren't just listening to a lecture. They are actively doing, retrieving information, and solving problems in real time. That's what builds a real, durable skill. Okay, so enough about what not to do. How do we actually do this the right way? Let's start with students and talk about how to build some keystone study habits. All right, students, listen up. If you remember one single thing from all this, make it this one: retrieval practice. Forget rereading. Your main goal should be to constantly pull information out of your brain. The easiest way to think about it is self-quizzing. Every single time you recall a fact, you're making that memory stronger. This is all best illustrated by the incredible story of a guy named Michael Young. He started medical school at the bottom of his class, but he completely turned it around by doing one thing: retrieval practice. Instead of just reading, he would constantly stop and ask himself, okay, what did I just learn? His logic, which is just brilliant, was this: if I can't recall this now while I'm studying, how on earth am I going to recall it on the test? So for any student out there, it really comes down to these three power moves. Number 1, practice retrieval. Quiz yourself all the time. 2, space it out. Don't cram. You need to let yourself forget a little bit. That struggle to remember is exactly what makes the memory stronger. And number 3, interleave it. Don't just study one subject for hours. Mix it up. Study some math, then some history, then go back to math. But of course, learning doesn't just stop when you leave a classroom, right? Whether you're picking up a new instrument, a new coding language, or just a new skill for your job, these same principles are total game changers. So if you're learning on the job or just from life experience, your most powerful tool is reflection. And really, this is just another form of retrieval practice. After a big project or even just a meeting, take 2 minutes and ask yourself, what just happened? What went well? What would I do differently next time? That simple act of structured recall absolutely cements the lesson. Here are a few other powerful techniques. Try explaining a new idea to a friend. If you can't explain it simply, you probably don't understand it well enough yet. Also, always try to connect new information to things you already know. You want to build that mental web. And find analogies, like the actor Nathaniel Fuller. He doesn't just memorize his lines, he quizzes himself on the meaning and the motivation behind them. See, it's about understanding the big picture, not just the isolated facts. Now let's switch gears and talk about the folks who are designing the learning experiences. teachers have this huge opportunity to build these desirable difficulties right into the classroom. So this means shifting the focus a bit. Instead of just having high-stakes final exams, use frequent, low-stakes quizzes as learning tools. Design your curriculum to constantly circle back to old topics while you introduce new ones. And maybe most importantly, tell your students why you're doing it. Let them in on the secret. Hey, this is going to feel harder, and that's actually a good thing. It means your brain is working in building real, lasting knowledge. Oh, I absolutely love this analogy from the book. Think of your brain as a dense forest. Every time you struggle to recall a memory, you're basically hacking a path through that forest. The more times you travel that path, the wider and clearer it becomes. You know what just looking at your notes is like? It's like taking a helicopter. Sure, you get to the destination, but you haven't built a single path to get there again on your own. And finally, let's look at the workplace. These same principles are starting to revolutionize corporate training, and it's finally moving us away from that dreaded fire hose approach. Just look at how real companies are using this stuff. Farmers Insurance, they use what they call a spiraling curriculum. They don't just teach a skill one time, they circle back to it again and again in new, more complex situations. And Jiffy Lube University uses spaced and mixed practice in its training, which has dramatically improved employee performance and retention. The bottom line here is this isn't just theory. This stuff really works in the real world. So what is actually happening inside our heads when we learn this way? This brings us to what might be the most empowering message of all. And this is the most incredible part. This isn't just a metaphor. When you struggle to remember something, you are physically changing the structure of your brain. You are literally building and strengthening your neural pathways. This means your intelligence isn't fixed. Effort physically grows your capability. And that really brings us to the ultimate takeaway from Make It Stick. The tools that shape your intellectual abilities, they're largely in your hands. It's not about what you're born with, it's about what you build. And failure? Failure isn't some final verdict on your ability, it's just part of the construction process. Learning how to learn is really the ultimate meta skill. These strategies, retrieval, spacing, interleaving, these are your new tools. So the only question left is, what are you going to build with them? What will you go out and master?